Be me, 31 years old, and dating a guy named Corey for about 3 months now. Things are going really well, and I think this could actually go somewhere. He is kind and successful and treats me better than anyone I have dated. We have real conversations and laugh together, and the chemistry is incredible. We are laying in bed one night after a really good date together. He gets quiet and says he wants to ask me something kind of personal. I say, "Of course, you can ask me anything. I'm an open book with you." He hesitates and then asks how many people I have been with before him. I was not expecting that question, but I do not think it is a big deal. Tell him honestly that my number is somewhere around 35, give or take. Say I stopped counting exactly after a while, because it does not matter to me. He goes quiet, and I can feel the energy in the room shift immediately. Ask him why he is being weird about it, because it is just a number. He says he is not being weird. He just needed a minute to process it. Ask him what his number is, since we are sharing personal information now. He says his 6, including me, and he has only had serious relationships mostly. Feel a little surprised. His number is so low because he is attractive and successful. Could easily have a higher number if he wanted to, but he chose differently. He says he only sleeps with women. He sees long-term potential with always. Says sex is connected to emotions for him, and he cannot separate them easily. Ask him if my number is a problem for him, and he gets quiet again. He says honestly he does not know yet and needs time to think about it. I immediately get defensive and say, this is such a double standard bullshit. Say men sleep around and get praised, but women do it and get judged. He says he is not judging me. He is just processing his own feelings. Says he has never dated anyone with a number that high before. Honestly says it brings up questions for him that he needs to work through internally. I ask what kind of questions because I want to understand what he is thinking. He sighs and says questions about compatibility and values and how we see intimacy. Says for him, sex is something sacred that he shares with people he loves deeply. Says hearing my number makes him wonder if I see it the same way he does, or if intimacy means something different to me than it does to him. Overall, I say sex can be fun and casual, and it does not have to be deep every time. Say I spent my 20s exploring and enjoying myself, and there is nothing wrong with that. Say women should be free to have the same experiences as men without judgment. He nods and says he agrees women should be free to make their own choices. But he says freedom to make choices does not mean freedom from how others feel. Says he has the right to his own preferences, just like I had right to my choices. Says he is not saying I'm a bad person, just that this is something he has to think about. I feel frustrated because I do not understand what there is to think about here. Ask him directly if he is going to break up with me over a number. He says he does not know yet, and he does not want to make a rush decision. Says he really likes me and wants to see if he can work through this feeling. But he also does not want to pretend it does not affect him when it clearly does. We leave things unresolved that night, and I drive home feeling confused and angry. Call my best friend Tanya and vent about how ridiculous the whole conversation was. She agrees and says men are hypocrites who want experienced women but judge them for it. Says he is probably insecure and cannot handle a woman who has lived her life fully. But something about her validation does not make me feel better this time. Usually when she agrees with me, I feel justified and righteous about my position. This time, I just feel unsettled, like maybe I am missing something important here. Decide to do some research and actually understand where he might be coming from. Go online and start reading forums and threads about how men view body count, expecting to find a bunch of insecure misogynists confirming my existing beliefs. Instead, I find something more nuanced that makes me really uncomfortable. Honestly, find posts from men explaining why high body counts are a concern for them, not from a place of judgment, but from a place of wanting long-term compatibility. They talk about pair bonding and how casual sex can affect ability to connect deeply. They talk about wanting someone whose values around intimacy match their own values. One post explains it in a way that actually makes me stop and think hard. He says, imagine you have a favorite restaurant you only go to for special occasions. It is sacred to you, and you have been there maybe 5 or 6 times in your life. Every visit is meaningful and memorable and connected to important moments. Now imagine you meet someone and tell them about this special restaurant excitedly. They say, "Oh yeah, I have been there like 35 times. It is pretty good, I guess." Suddenly, your sacred place does not feel that special anymore to either of you. What was rare and meaningful to you is just ordinary and forgettable to them. He says that is how some men feel about intimacy with a high body count partner. Not that she is a bad person, but that she might not value what he values deeply, something he treats as sacred and rare. She treats as casual and recreational. And that difference in values can cause problems down the line in relationships. Sit with that analogy for a while because it actually makes sense to me. I never thought about how my past might make a partner feel about our present. Always assume my body count was my business and should not affect anyone else. But relationships are not just about individual freedom. They are about shared values. Start thinking about my past and why my number is as high as it is, honestly. A lot of it was in my early 20s when I was partying and not thinking long term. Some of it was after breakups when I was hurt and looking for validation externally. Some of it was because my friends and I treated high numbers as empowerment badges. We used to brag about our conquests like they were achievements to collect. Whoever had the most guys was winning some imaginary game we made up together. It was our way of feeling powerful in a world that told us to be modest. But looking back, I do not think I was actually happy during that time. A lot of those encounters left me feeling empty and more alone than before. I was chasing a feeling that I never quite caught, no matter how many guys. Told myself I was sexually liberated, but really I was just sexually lost, using casual sex to fill a void that only got deeper with every encounter. Text Corey the next day and ask if we can talk in person about everything. He agrees, and I go over to his place that evening feeling nervous about it. He looks tired, like he has been thinking about this as much as I have been. Sit down on his couch and tell him I want to understand his perspective better. He takes a deep breath and says he wrote some things down to explain clearly. Pulls out his phone and reads what sounds like a letter he wrote to me. He says, "When I was younger, I watched my dad cheat on my mom constantly. He was the kind of guy who slept around and saw women as conquest to collect. My mom was destroyed by it, and I promised myself I would never be like him. So I became intentional about who I slept with because I saw what carelessness did." He says, sex for me is tied to love and commitment and vulnerability and trust. When I sleep with someone, I am giving them a part of myself I cannot get back. Finding out you have given that part to 35 people makes me feel less special. Not because you are bad, but because what I saved you already gave away many times. He says, I am not saying your past makes you worthless or undateable to everyone. I am saying it makes me question if we are compatible in this specific area. I want a partner who sees intimacy the way I do, as rare and sacred and meaningful. Your history suggests you might see it differently, and that scares me, honestly. He puts down his phone and looks at me, waiting for my response to everything. I sit there feeling something I did not expect to feel, which is understanding. Not agreeing with everything, but understanding where he is coming from. At least his feelings are not about controlling me. They are about protecting himself. Tell him I never thought about it from that perspective before. Honestly, always assume men who cared about body count were just insecure and judgmental. Never considered that it might be about values and compatibility and meaning. Say, I need to think about some things, and ask if he can give me a few days. Go home and spend the next week really examining my past and my choices. Not from a place of shame, but from a place of honest self-reflection. Finally, ask myself if I was actually happy during my hoe phase, or just pretending. Ask myself if casual sex ever gave me what I was actually looking for deep down. The honest answer is no. It never did give me what I was looking for. Every casual encounter left me wanting more connection, not less. Somehow I was searching for intimacy and validation, but finding only emptiness instead. The liberation I thought I felt was actually just numbness disguised as freedom. Think about the women I know who are happily married and in great relationships. Most of them do not have high body counts and were intentional about partners. They valued themselves enough to not give access to just anyone who asked. They understood something I am only now starting to understand about myself. Call Tanya to talk about everything I have been processing this past week. She immediately starts defending me and saying Corey is the problem, not me. I interrupt her and say, actually, I think he might have a point this time. She goes quiet because I have never pushed back on her validation before. Ever. Tell her I have been thinking about our 20s and how we approached dating, how we encouraged each other to rack up numbers like it was a competition, how we called it empowerment, but really it was just chaos disguised as freedom. Ask her if she is actually happy with her dating life or just pretending. She gets defensive and says, of course she is happy and living her best life. But her voice wavers, and I know she is lying because I used to lie the same way. We built an entire friendship around validating each other's bad decisions. And now, I am seeing that validation was keeping us both stuck in unhappiness. Text Corey and ask if he can meet me at the coffee shop to talk. He agrees, and I show up with a new perspective on everything between us. Tell him I have been doing a lot of thinking about what he said in my past. Say I understand where he is coming from now, and I do not think he is wrong. Tell him my number is high because I was lost and looking for something external. Was chasing validation and connection in all the wrong places for many years. Did not value myself enough to be selective about who I let get close to me. Mistook sexual freedom for actual empowerment when it was really self-destruction. Say I am not that person anymore, and I am working on understanding why I was. Say I cannot change my past, but I can choose differently going forward from now. Say if my number is a deal breaker for him, I understand and will not resent him. But if he is willing to move forward, I am committed to building something different. He listens and then says something that surprises me after everything we discussed. Says he has been doing his own thinking and realizes he was being somewhat unfair. Says he cannot judge me for a past that happened before we ever even met. Says what matters is who I am now and who I want to become going forward. Says he still has some discomfort, but he is willing to work through it together. Says he believes people can change and grow and become different versions of themselves. Says he wants to give us a real chance because what we have feels worth fighting for. Says he just needs honesty and communication and reassurance as we move forward together. I start crying because I did not expect him to still want me after everything. Thought for sure my number would be the end of something that felt so promising. He hugs me and says, we all have pasts, and his is not perfect either, honestly. Says what matters is building a future together that reflects who we want to be. Over the next few months, we have hard conversations about values and intimacy. I tell him things about my past I have never told anyone before out loud. He listens without judgment and shares his own struggles and insecurities with me. We build something deeper than I have ever had with anyone before. Honestly realize that his question about my body count was actually a gift to me. It forced me to examine my past in a way I had been avoiding for years. Forced me to confront the emptiness behind my so-called sexual liberation journey. Forced me to get honest about what I actually want instead of what I was settling for. A year later, we are still together and talking about engagement and future. He says I am the most honest and self-aware person he has ever been with. Says watching me do the hard work of growth made him fall deeper in love. Says he is grateful I did not just dismiss his concerns as insecurity like others would. Think about the feminist talking points I used to believe without questioning them. That body count does not matter, and anyone who cares is just insecure and controlling. That women should be able to sleep around without consequences just like men do. That preferences about sexual history are always rooted in misogyny and double standards. Now I see it more nuanced than that after doing my own work and reflection. Body count can matter to people, and that is a valid preference to have for themselves. It does not make them insecure. It makes them intentional about compatibility with partners. Dismissing their concerns as double standards is just avoiding the real conversation. Still believe women should have freedom to make their own choices about their bodies? But freedom does not mean other people have to be okay with those choices in partners. Actions have consequences, and some of those consequences are how others perceive you. That is not oppression. That is just how human relationships and preferences work. Told my sister, who is 24, about everything I learned from this experience. She is in her hoe phase right now and posting about it on social media proudly. Told her to be careful and really examine what she is looking for in all of it. Said the numbers might not matter to her now, but they might matter to someone later. She dismissed me and said I was being pick-me and letting a man change my values. Said I was betraying feminism by validating male preferences about female sexuality. I let her have her opinion because I was exactly like her just a few years ago. She will either figure it out herself or learn the hard way, like I did, eventually. Not everyone will care about body count, and that is perfectly fine for them. But some people will care, and they are not wrong or bad for caring about it. Compatibility is about shared values, and intimacy is a value that matters to many. Finding someone whose values match yours is more important than being right ideologically. Corey asked me to marry him last month, and I said yes without any hesitation. Not because I changed myself for a man, but because I changed myself for me. His question about my past was the catalyst, but the growth was my own work. I became someone I am actually proud of, instead of someone just performing liberation. The body count conversation I thought would end us actually saved me from myself. Forced me to see that my past was not empowerment. It was running from pain. Forced me to get honest about what intimacy means to me and what I actually want. Forced me to choose intentionally, instead of just reacting to my own unhealed wounds. Sometimes the things we think are double standards are actually just different values. Sometimes the men we think are insecure are actually just intentional about compatibility. Sometimes the sexual liberation we celebrate is actually just trauma disguised as freedom. And sometimes a hard conversation with an honest man can change your entire life direction.